Here we are in Harrison Hot Springs, British Columbia. Harrison Hot Springs, famous for a couple of reasons, one of which being this is the epicenter of Sasquatch activity in Canada. The Sasquatch, of course, is a primate that has been seen by very few people, but has somehow cemented itself into the heart of Canadian folklore, much like the IKEA monkey. But it's elusive. It's so elusive in this town, this part of the world, for all the sightings, all the reports, all the footprints found, all the recordings of strange howls in the night. Nobody who's ever come to this town has actually found one. Although, if you think about it, the reverse may be true. You're literally surrounded by mountains and your town is 1 square kilometer. Maybe Sasquatch is having a hard time finding you. When you grow up in a small town in Newfoundland, you see the people have a sense of humor about hard times. I turned that into a career and hit the road. Mr. Johnny Harris! Now I'm on a mission to find the funny in the places you least expect it. Canada's struggling small towns. Towns that are against the ropes, but hanging in there. Still laughing in the face of adversity. This is Harrison Hot Springs, British Columbia. The other reason, of course, that Harrison Hot Springs is famous, it is for the hot springs, the hot therapeutic waters enriched with minerals, very high in sulfur. Although I did read one of the side effects of accidentally ingesting sulfur is blurry vision. So I'm wondering with the Sasquatch stuff, if you spend too much time in the hot springs and then when Sasquatch sighting, maybe you're with a tall guy in a fur coat, I don't know. Maybe mistakes were made. I don't know. The only struggle here in Harrison Hot Springs really is the winter months. Here in the summer, it is packed. There are tourists everywhere. They're spending lots of money. It's great. In the winter months, I hear Sasquatch comes in here to see if humans exist. I wanted to find out a bit more about the dual personality of this town. I had a chat with a woman who works with Tourism Harrison, Stephanie Gallimore.
People usually come here July and August. That's the peak season in Harrison. If you're here on a weekend, you can't get like a parking spot anywhere near here.
Stephanie told me that in peak season in the summer, over 700,000 visitors come through this town. They're boating in the lake. They're fishing in the river.
There's just people all over this beach everywhere.
Yeah.
It's hard to get a private spot of beach for yourself.
The beach is so packed, you don't throw a beach towel down. You reserve your spot with a washcloth. You just put a little washcloth down there, and that's your spot for the day. It's sort of hard to tan in the fetal position, but you got about as much personal space as the third guy in a smart car.
And then September happens, and it just slows right down.
It's like there's not
a whole lot of people walking around right now.
Right. No one's going to rent me a kayak today.
No.
In winter months, a lot of businesses reduce down to skeleton hours. Some places, businesses have to close entirely for up to 8 months a year. She said, when people come in the summer, they're blown away and they get swept up in the magic of it.
So they come here, they see it as a good business opportunity. Like the town looks like it's really busy.
Yeah. And then in the winter months, there's a bit of a reality check. The kind of check that bounces at the bank. I guess the town grew up around the hot springs.
Yeah. So in the 1800s, Harrison Resort, they actually got the mineral rights to the hot springs water here.
In the 1930s, the Harrison Hot Springs Resort gained popularity. It started attracting literally royalty. The King and Queen of Siam were here. Important politicians, President Herbert Hoover, Prime Minister Mackenzie King, and Hollywood royalty.
Clark Gable stayed here quite a few years ago.
Clark Gable apparently planted a tree outside the resort. They were like, where would you like to plant this tree, Mr. Gable? He was like, frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn. Then he was like, maybe just out front.
Part of their deal with getting the mineral rights to the water, they have to provide the village with a certain amount of mineral water. What they did was they created this hot springs public pool, but if you want that like outdoor environment, you have to stay at the resort.
Right. So obviously the town largely identifies with the hot springs themselves, but it's also sort of grown into more than that.
Yeah, we just actually opened a Sasquatch museum last June. We've got our lake, we've got hiking, we have a good biking network. We've got a lot more to offer than just the hot springs.
Right. It's just a beautiful area you guys have here. As I said, you're literally surrounded by mountains and always with these sort of like wisps of fog. I gotta say, as a Newfoundlander, I'm jealous of your fog. Like, fog in Newfoundland is damp and you can't see, and like the fog is foggy. You guys don't have foggy fog. Your fog is like in these like nice wisps that sort of dance along the top of the evergreen trees on your snow-capped mountains. Drives me crazy. My mom called me. She said, "What's the weather like?" I said, "There's a lot of fog." She was like, "Oh, how's visibility?" I said, "Perfect. I don't understand."
Fornia.ca.
To learn a bit more about Sasquatch lore in Harrison Hot Springs, I met a man who has dedicated his life to uncovering the mystery. He isn't just knowledgeable on the subject, he wrote the book on it. 5, in fact. I'm talking about Thomas Steenberg.
January 28, 2017. This stake here marks the spot where it was standing. You can see down there where the witnesses were, where we were. And it went off in that direction. I marked it later on. So you see the file number and everything right on there for the case file.
Something I appreciated about Thomas's take on it is that even though he's dedicated his life to this, and investigated hundreds of these files, and discovered impressions and taken moldings of footprints, he's not trying to convince you.
A researcher is someone who has to admit that in the end he may turn out to be wrong. He's a researcher. He's trying to find an answer to a mystery.
Which I thought that was pretty good for a guy who's authored 3 books, co-authored 2 more. I think he keeps writing books hoping that Sasquatch will come out of the forest to demand royalties. He told me how the name came about.
Well, this is where it really all started. Right across the river from Harrison Hot Springs is Chehalis First Nations. That is where the name Sasquatch comes from.
Yeah.
They call it the Susquehanna, or Suskas. All depends on who you talk to and how they pronounce it.
Right. He said a guy, J.W. Burns, wrote an article for Maclean's magazine
Entitled Introducing BC's Hairy Giants. And he took their name and he misspelled and mispronounced it. He called it Sasquatch and has been known as Sasquatch ever since.
He mispronounced the Chehalis word, but at least he tried. It's better than the Americans, right? Like, oh man, whoa, look at the size of that footprint. That creature must have a big foot. What should we call it? Bigfoot. Well, maybe we should speak to Native American groups. Maybe they know something about this creature or already have a name for it. Maybe they could give us some of the history. Come on, man, just Bigfoot. Just write a Bigfoot. What are you gonna do? Put Saskets on the side of a monster truck? Come on.
Just listen for a moment. Dead silence. Probably why they hear us long before we hear them.
But I said to Thomas, I said, geographically, is there enough space? Like, is it possible that these creatures could exist and we just haven't found them yet?
Once you leave Harrison Hot Springs, there's nothing. It's wilderness. You could hide dinosaurs here, and the odds are no one would ever come across the darn things. Yeah.
You know, he said you could hide a pack of dinosaurs and no one would. I said, I'm freaked out enough about Sasquatch. Don't be telling me there could be a velociraptor coming out here. Sylvester Stallone has visited your hot springs, but the official Rocky around here is woodcarver and artist from the Chehalis First Nation, Claude Rocky LaRock. He and I, we spoke about the Sasquatch. He told me that to the Chehalis people, Sasquatch is not a monster.
We respect him. We feed him in ceremony. We pray to him. We hear him when he screams when he crosses a river. If you see Sasquatch, it's because he let you see him.
He said anybody who's actually seen the Sasquatch has only done so if the Sasquatch has allowed it. And if you have seen it, it is a good omen.
I myself, I've never seen him, He's all, I like to create him myself in what I think he looks like.
Yeah. Rocky told me that years ago, a stone sculptor from this area, Werner Streisig, he got in touch with Rocky. He wanted to make a sculpture.
If I get a log, he says, you want to make a Sasquatch? I said, sure. And we started carving that sculpture for like, I don't know, 6 weeks.
Yeah.
We had quite a lot of fun.
Do you know the statue I'm talking about? Yeah. 20 feet tall, became very famous, somewhat notorious, anatomically wondrous. He showed me a picture of it. I looked at it, I said, I can't believe it's made out of softwood.
When I was working on his private parts, I would look up and down the road and make sure nobody was, driving by or nothing.
Let's just say when they first erected it, that's a bad choice of words. Bad choice of words. Let's just say when they got it up, no. Let's just say something about this statue, it was different. Something stuck out like a sore thumb.
All of a sudden, we started getting a lot of friction from people who were driving by because there was a lot of churchgoers there, I guess, at the time that were looking at it, and they didn't like what was pointing back at them there, so to speak.
I guess the town agreed that the statue would remain, but it would get turned around. So it was no longer facing the road, okay? Some of the ladies despaired until they saw this thing has buns of steel. Hardwood buns, at least. Another thing I found in Harrison Hot Springs, almost as rare as the Sasquatch, a German restaurant owned by an East Indian guy. Proprietor of the Black Forest restaurant, Sonny Manahani. Well, he said he always loved German food. When he was 19, he moved to Germany. He loved it. He had some friends there, had a great time.
I worked in a restaurant there for 4 years, and I fell in love with schnitzel. That was my dream, to have a German restaurant one day.
I think it's wonderful, but to me it's so funny because me and my peers are all such fans of Indian food. None of my friends have ever been like, oh, let's just order in some German.
Whoever comes here, they plan to come to Black Forest.
It is a success story there. He's able to stay open all year round, which not all tourist-driven businesses are able to do. He said people know about the German food here in Harrison Hot Springs. They know about the Black Forest. And people internationally will come and they want to try the schnitzel there. I think it's nice to see people from around the world invade a German spot for once.
How do you like it?
It's really good.
Yeah.
You're making me a believer in German food.
No more Vindaloo for you.
No more Vindaloo. What attracts so many people from all over the world? Well, he can do 45 types of schnitzel. He had picked out some various dishes of German food and schnitzel for us to eat. So I didn't actually have a look at the menu, which is too bad because I always wanted to see Schnitzel's list. But I'm afraid I might have offended Sonny. I was eating rouladen, beef, and I said, what do you top this beef with?
There's a pickle, bacon, onions, and some mustard.
It's got some of the same things as a classic American hamburger would have. I was like, oh, right, yeah, like a hamburger. He was like, it's not like a hamburger. I gotta say, not that I'm any expert, but when it comes to German cuisine, it was the best I've ever had, I schnitz you not. In Harrison Hot Springs, you can go fishing for white sturgeon, a massive, prehistoric, technically dinosaur type of fish. I went out with the owner of BC Sport Fishing Group, the Rod and Reel McCoy, Tony Notibus. Guess who came with us? You might know him as the man in motion. I call him the Sturgeon General, Rick Hansen.
Back in the 1990s, there were a large number of big, mature broodstock sturgeon that mysteriously died and washed up on the beaches throughout the Fraser River.
Rick was saying, in the early 90s, the population of white sturgeon in the Fraser River plummeted. They began to wash up, much like Motley Crue. Rick founded the Fraser River Sturgeon Conservation Society.
The really neat thing is we're not only just fishing for sturgeon, we're actually doing research and we're contributing to conservation.
For me, that's a huge part. Is our business is catch and release fishing.
If you catch a sturgeon, you can adopt it.
You pay your fee, which is $100, and every time that fish has been resampled again, you'll get an email saying, hey, your fish named Joe has been recaptured. It could be 10 kilometers away, it could be 100 kilometers away, but you'll know Joe's still swimming around and doing well.
And you get to name the fish, and you'll like get emails, updates about how your sturgeon is doing. Yeah, it's pretty neat. It's pretty neat. Anyway, there we are chatting at the back of the boat, and then we got a bite.
Go right away. Pull.
You got it. Good job, man. He's on. Woohoo.
I got him on the line. I couldn't believe the strength of this thing. They really put up a fight.
There he is.
Oh, wow. Look at that fish.
John, do you want a belt?
If you want to have kids, we should put the belt on.
Then Tony and Rick, they started asking me, do you want a belt? I thought this is a weird time to accessorize, but if it matches my shoes, I guess so.
Just hold there. Yeah.
Oh, shit. In my comedy, my show, I don't swear a whole lot, but apparently fishing for white sturgeon, I swear a lot. F this, and I can't effing hold that anymore.
He's getting pretty close now. Well, he was.
Oh, you son of a bitch. Then I get it reeled in a bit, and then the sturgeon gets energy and takes off, and my reel's just like, and I'm like, oh, you big S of a big.
Reel into the water and step forward as you do it. Step forward as you do it.
And Rick is like, don't let there be any slack in the line. If there's slack, he might get away. I got to the point where my hand just turned dumb. I just couldn't do a simple spinning motion anymore. I was just too tired, up and down and up and down. I thought, okay, I'm gonna have to try to spin with my other arm. So I'm holding my right and doing something like, this should be sign language for no, I don't know how to fish.
Good job. You're doing great. Almost there. Forward a bit, Tony.
And Tony's driving the boat. That's a big part of it. So in certain instances, you got to move the boat towards the fish. In other instances, you got to move the boat away from the fish. Come on.
He's almost there now.
Oh, God, there's no end to it.
He's getting close.
Then I realized that to Tony, me and Rick must sound like I'm giving birth and he's my midwife. I'm screaming across, how big is this thing gonna be? I can't do this anymore. And Rick is like, it's okay, breathe, Johnny, breathe. You're doing great. You're doing fine.
You're doing great.
Just reel down and one more time.
Hey.
Oh, nice fish. That's fantastic.
So I did the adoption thing. Yeah, I named it after my dog. So we're thrilled to announce the arrival of Macy, 82 inches, 175 pounds, 6 ounces. 40 years old, gender indeterminate. We're very proud. We're very proud.
Glow.
After spending my time in Harrison Hot Springs chasing giant, mysterious forest beasts and catching dinosaurs out of the river, it was time to put this Harris in the Harrison Hot Springs. So I went down to the public pool this time, and I soaked it all in with visiting artist Aileen Penner. Oh, you brought some pie?
I brought some pie. Would you like some pie?
Are we allowed to eat pie in the swimming pool?
We are.
Yeah? We were eating rhubarb pie. I couldn't believe it. She said, oh yeah, the rules are pretty relaxed down here at the pool. People will often bring snacks.
I've seen people eating hot dog wieners out of a package. A lady with a whole entire bundt cake and just still in the pan.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You want to be respectful. You don't want to drop your fried chicken in the water, right? Because it's the perfect combination of 7 different minerals. You don't need to add 11 herbs and spices.
This is where most of the people in the community come, right? And they kind of stay here all day, and it's just like a bit of a low-budget retreat.
I was floating around talking to different people. There was a guy down there, Riley Foreman.
Hot spring is my hobby. I started about 10 years ago. I found a hot spring out in the woods, and I'm like, what is this? Hot boiling mineral water coming from the earth?
He travels all over researching hot springs. He's a fountain of information, you might say. But he was telling me all about aquatherapy and hot springs therapy and hot springs culture. He said it's taken off all around the world. He said it's going to be huge for BC.
There's 3-4 million people within a 3-hour radius of Harrison Hot Springs. If this was in Japan, you'd have to get a reservation to come here.
He said the pool that we were in, he said if this place was in Japan, there'd be a lineup around the block. I felt bad because I felt like It was really interesting information, but in that pool, you're so relaxed, it's hard to look like really impressed. Like he is telling me like, oh yeah, I've been to 80 or 90 hot springs all over the world. And I'm like, is that right? You know, I think what you guys have here in Harrison Hot Springs is both balance and variety. You have hot and cold. You have hectic excitement and then tranquil isolation. You have big hearts and even bigger feet. And no matter, even if the winter months remain a struggle for some residents and businesses, Harrison Hot Springs will survive. This is like an industry town, like a logging or a mining town, but Mother Nature has tapped you with a possibly endless resource. For the first time, I can say, in a small town with a smile on my face, you're always going to be in hot water. Thanks, Harrison. You've been great.
Johnny, if you encounter a Sasquatch, get his picture and call me right away, and go grab him.
Johnny, it's Sasquatch.
Oh, geez, that is really hot. Ah, it is too hot. It's sort of too...
Your show was the worst, like my bratwurst.
Congratulations, Johnny. You're going to make a great dad on your new adopted fish. 210 centimeters. Congratulations.